Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the MYOB and Blue Banana online series. And it's the last one today. Boo hoo! It's been absolutely great. We've had some great presentations on branding and various social media platforms, email marketing, defining your target market, and heaps more over the last 10 weeks. So we've actually covered an awful lot of ground. But today we've got an absolute treat. We've got Craig Rispin. So let me tell you about Craig. Now, Craig's a business futurist and innovation expert, and his expertise is in emerging business, people, and technology trends and how companies can actually profit for them. He's got over 20 years' experience working where the future has been created with some of the most innovative companies in the world, with consumer electronics, internet, and broadcasting industries. He's an award-winning speaker himself and has addressed audiences from 15 to 3,000 on 5 different continents and has consulted with CEOs of leading companies worldwide. Some of his clients include people like Canon and IBM, and Kimberly-Clark and Toyota, and a whole heap of others. Now, Craig's coming to you live from Sydney this morning. I'm in a very foggy Auckland, and can you believe it? Craig's got 3 children and 5 robots in his household. So I can imagine if you go for tea there, that I'd like to have a bit of fun with those robots. So let me hand straight over to Craig. Craig, looking forward to your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Linda. It's great to be with you. And thank you, everyone, for making time in your schedule to chat about the future. And I don't know how many of you have seen me before. If you've heard me present before, why don't you type into the chat box a Y for yes or an N for no, so I know whether you've seen me before, just so I can customize my content a little bit for you. But let's get started. And I want to have a little discussion about what is a futurist, first of all, because this is an important thing. You know, what is a futurist? Is it a real job? A lot of people ask me that. They say, Craig, you couldn't possibly have a job as a futurist, could you? Well, you actually can. You know, they look at my business card and think, oh, he's just unemployed. I don't know. But I like to say, don't make it too complicated. Futurists are just reverse historians. If you think about what historians study, they study the past, and we study the future. But it's interesting, when you go to school, and you can go to school, and you can study future trends, one of the first things that you study is history, but historians don't study the future. So I say that we try and peer over the horizon a little bit to make better decisions today. You know, we're trying to analyze trends. We're trying to connect the dots for our clients so they can see where the significant changes. And really, I see my role in life is to help people create preferable futures, because the future isn't something that's set. It's something that's malleable. You can change something today and it will change the future. And so I want to empower my clients to make those changes in their business so they can have a preferable future. And every futurist has a specialty in one area or another. And I specialize in the intersection of people, business, and technology. There are medical futurists, there are police futurists, can you believe it? I've spoken for the Police Futurists Association. There are airline futurists, there are agricultural futurists, there are economic futurists, but these are the areas that I study and what I'm most fascinated with, and my clients ask me to help them. So if I say I study people, people sounds very general, but my clients will ask me specific things. They might ask me about internal people, their workforce, and how they're changing. And I have one client who's doing a great big social experiment right now where they took an office building that had 7,000 employees and they shut that down and moved employees into an office building with only 4,000 seats. And that's a big social experiment. That is a big change. And they're trying to figure out how that applies to their workforce. And other clients will ask me about external people. They'll say, our clients are changing rapidly, Craig. Can you tell us, you know, what's going on? We're trying to get a handle on it. So it gives you an idea, and we'll drill down into some of these ideas today. So being a futurist is a real job. You can get a degree in future studies, a BA, MS, or a PhD. And the study of future trends is called various things: strategic foresight, in Melbourne, Swinburne University's had a program running for almost 30 years and graduated about 900 students. It's called Strategic Foresight. I wonder, is there a university in New Zealand? I haven't checked yet. I bet you there's one around. Or you could do a short course. Of course, you can do these courses online. And the Futurist community is actually open sourced our entire curriculum. So any university or individual can get our curriculum, take our techniques that we've been developing literally for decades and use them for themselves. One of my favorite places to guest lecture, or if you wanted to go do a short course, there's a great one in Hawaii. And what I love about their courses is you go surfing or swimming in the morning and you do your lectures in the afternoon. And that's what I call university.
Yeah.
I wish I had a university like that. And Linda, I know going to Fiji, and they have a futurist in Fiji as well. So
Oh, I'll have to
and
look him
find a
up.
futurist in Fiji. Yeah. So after you graduate and get a degree in future studies, you can join great professional associations like the World Future Society. And if you Google the World Future Society or WFS.org, there are 20,000 futurists here, all sharing great ideas about commerce and humanity, science and technology, the future of government. There's all sorts of great information here. And you can become a member. Oh, it's under $200. It's ridiculously cheap and great value. You get this nice journal called The Futurist, and then get email updates. And these futurists are sort of what I call my hive mind. So they're all connected. They're all connected on the internet now, and we can ask each other questions. So whenever we have a difficult problem with a client, I've got 20,000 people I can turn to for help. It's a great group of people. I call them my wacky, strange friends. But then that's what my friends call me. So I guess I'm one of them as well. So futurists advise all sorts of organizations, companies, governments, non-government organizations. I do a lot of work with professional organizations, peak body groups. I was just in New Zealand last week speaking to the Medical Technology Association in New Zealand. Product designers, entrepreneurs, you'd be surprised where they pop up. For instance, did you know that there is an expert panel of color futurists? They actually predict what colors are going to be hot in the future. So if you wander around the stores, go to the shopping mall, and have a look at all the shop windows right now. Linda, you may have noticed, have you noticed that there's been a particular odd shade of orange popping up in all the shop windows? Have you noticed that in New Zealand?
I must say I haven't, but I'll look out for it.
Yeah. Well, now that I've mentioned it, you will see it
I
because I was
will.
wandering around and I saw it everywhere. And
Oh,
there's a company that has numbers that they apply to every color in the world. And Pantone, if you work in the graphic design industry, if you work in the auto industry, any industry that uses color, you know who Pantone is. They're the biggest company around colors. So I remember when I worked for a company, we had a particular blue, and it was blue 232. And our logo always had to be that particular blue. This is Pantone, and they have a color futurist panel that picked the color for the future. And at the end of 2011, they said that the color for 2012 was going to be this particular orange color that they called Mango Tango. Mango Tango. And I wonder, did they predict that orange was going to be hot color? Or did they suggest it and it became that? There's a big debate about that. But who knew that there were color futurists? And I've met Pantone's color futurist. She's a crazy, crazy lady. The United Nations employs a huge number of futurists looking at geopolitical changes. And China has embraced futurism going back 30 years. Alvin Toffler, who wrote Future Shock, is considered one of the top foreigners to shape modern China. And a lot of what China has become today, they say, can be attributed to the ideas of Alvin Toffler. So there's a Kiwi you all may know and love. Well, he chooses to live in New Zealand. You know Kevin Roberts, don't you?
Yep, yep.
He's the guru at Saatchi and Saatchi and published this fantastic book, Love Marks. And he was quoted at an association that Linda and I are both part of, that foresight and innovation are the only two things can set you apart from your competition today. So I thought that's what we should talk about today. We should talk about foresight. We should talk about innovation. We should talk about things that are practical that can be helpful in all of your businesses as well. So let's move on to that. Anybody know who this is? There's a little hint on the slide. Chat it in the chat message if you know who this is.
I know. Do I get a star?
Anyone? Yes, yes, but you've heard me present before.
Ah, I've seen this guy live.
Oh, he's fantastic, isn't he?
He is. He is. I
This
saw him
is
in New
Jack.
York. Brilliant.
Yeah, this is Jack. This is Jack Welch. And do you know, the first time that I met him, I was flying over to America. The Qantas flight was delayed and the super shuttle queue was very long. And I was meant to get to this big conference with over 2,000 professional speakers. I was meant to get there in the morning and I didn't arrive until lunchtime. There was this huge ballroom. Imagine 2,000 people at these, round tables where you got 10 of them. And I sneak in the back and the guy sitting next to me extends his hand and says, "Hi, I'm Jack Welch." I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting in this room and I'm sitting next to Jack Welch. Well, being the smooth, cool operator that I am, I looked at him and said, "I know." That's all I could think of saying. I mean, I'm sitting next to Jack Welch. And we were meant to have on our name badges that day 3 topics that we were really interested in. And so I had written on my badge before I went into the room, foresight, obviously because I'm a futurist, innovation, because I believe that you make a bet on the future and do something today, that's called innovation, and leadership. And Jack looked at my badge and I looked at his, and we had the 3 same topics. And he said to me, "Craig, hey, it looks like we're going to have an hour and a half over lunch here. There's going to be a few presenters, but we're going to have time to chat. Would you like me to tell you about how I brought in an innovation program to GE in 1981, and we grew the company to a $500 million company?" And I turned to him and I said, "Oh, no, let's just talk about sport." I didn't. I'm sitting next to Jack Welch, and he's offering to teach me about innovation. Oh, I couldn't believe it. It was one of those, I don't know, just, cosmic rays crossing. I couldn't believe that I was sitting next to Jack Welch and he was going to talk to me about innovation, but I can tell you more about that another time. Jack has many, many great topics. He talks about leadership, he talks about foresight, he talks about innovation. He's got some great quotes, and probably my favorite is that if change is happening on the outside faster than it is on the inside, the end is in sight. And for many of my clients, and these would be the large global multinationals that I'm dealing with, when I ask them to put up their hand and I ask them, tell me, do you think your customers are moving faster than you are? Almost every hand goes up. So about 12 years ago, this book was published. And this book changed the world of marketing forever. And it's actually directly related to the power of social media. And it's called the Clue Train Manifesto, published about 12 years ago. And it was the first book where a particular phrase popped up. They said that marketing is changing from being broadcast to being a two-way conversation. Sort of, like Twitter, right? Less like advertising on broadcast television, which was broadcasting one way to lots of people. Twitter is more like a conversation where you're going back and forth. This is what they were talking about 12 years ago. And you look at this book today. You can download it. I'll give you the URL. And if you look at what they're talking about in this book, everything that they've said has come true. It's like they knew that this was going to happen. Or did they suggest it was going to happen? And it has happened. But anyway, the first chapter starts off like this. It says, a powerful global conversation has begun. Through the internet, people are discovering and inventing new ways to share relevant knowledge with blinding speed. As a direct result, people are getting smarter and getting smarter faster than most companies. You know, this is what most of my clients are saying. Their clients are getting smarter than them. Are you one of their clients? Are you annoyed with how they respond to you? Are you looking for them to provide you better service or a better way of doing business? Here's an example of how people are connecting with blinding speed. Here's a teacher. You may have heard of him, Salman Khan, but he's not actually a teacher. He was a hedge fund manager on Wall Street. And after the financial crash, he decided to use his gifts in mathematics for good, he said. And so he started coaching some cousins, nieces, and nephews of his who needed some help with calculus and algebra. He found that the easiest way to share these coaching sessions, these tutoring sessions, was on YouTube. And when he uploaded them, all of a sudden, hundreds of thousands of people started watching it, saying, "This is the best math tutorial I've ever had." Now remember, he's not a teacher, not a mathematics teacher, but he was so encouraged by what people were saying on YouTube that he decided to continue doing it. And soon, he had created 2,000 math tutorials and posted it on YouTube. Well, that was a little while ago, and now he's assembled those YouTube videos onto a website. He got a little funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for doing his work, and he's got even more than 2,000 tutorials. And because of the speed in which technology that can connect people and give them the relevant information at blinding speed, in under 2 years, he's been able to create a learning organization at the Khan Academy that has served 165,761,768 lessons as of about 10 o'clock last night. This is one teacher empowered through technology. What kind of legacy will he be leaving? And he's just getting started. This is the power of technology for getting a message out, for good in education or for spreading bad information as well. That's what the UN is dealing with right now. Here's another one. I was showing this to the medical industry when I was in New Zealand. Patients like me. So my pharmacist friends, some of them really hate this because people that have medical conditions go to patients like me. They put in their condition or maybe a drug that they've been given, and they share information about how it's been affecting them. So I have a particular thyroid condition, and I can go in here and type in this thyroid condition, and I've got 9,000 friends who are on the same drug that I'm taking every day. And I tell you what, having 9,000 friends that share how that drug interacts with them and how it affects their lifestyle is a lot more information than my doctor or pharmacist could ever give me. Now, they can give me different information. They give me scientific information or drug interaction information. But this is, my friends. People are going through a similar thing that I'm going through. And they're sharing information with me on a daily basis. Many of them, my friends, are monitoring their blood and posting their blood results online, taking a tablet and saying, this is the result that we're getting. And in my particular condition, there's a generic drug that's available. And the generic drug is supposed to be chemically, molecularly identical to the name brand. But what patients like me, friends, are finding is that the generic is not reacting the same way. There's something about the transport medium that it's in that they've changed, and it's not having the same effect. And they haven't done any drug trials to prove this. But when I've got 9,000 friends saying there's some difference here, I tend to believe it. This is an example of what they were talking about in the Clue Train Manifesto. And you could get the Clue Train Manifesto at cluetrain.com. It's a fantastic book. And if you were doing, say, a social media campaign and you wanted to uh, have a framework to operate that in, to have a strategy, the Clue Train would have some great tips for you. Anyway, the start of the second chapter goes on that network customers are beginning to self-organize faster than the companies that have traditionally served them. Thanks to the web, markets are becoming better informed, smarter, and more demanding of qualities missing from most businesses and organizations. So here's a picture. It's actually an avatar cloud. It's all the little thumbnails from Twitter of a group of people who self-assembled when they were particularly cross with a company in Australia. Well, they're a global organization, but what happened in Australia is this organization merged their network, their mobile network, with one of their competitors, and during that week that they merged their technology, things stopped working. They SMS stopped getting delivered, mobile data wasn't working, voicemails weren't getting to people for a couple days, and some people were getting really frustrated, and I was too. I have one of these little USB dongles that you plug into the side of your laptop to get mobile data, and I plugged it in and it stopped working. So I called up this company's call center, and I got one of these, they call it predictive dialing system. It estimates how long your call is going to be answered. You probably heard one of these before. It sort of goes like this. We're experiencing a high volume of calls right now, but if you please hold on the line, your call is very important to us. We'll be with you in 4.9 days, they said. 4.9 days. So, being the geek that I am, I hung up the phone and I tweeted about it. I said, oh, my 3G dongle's not working from Vodafone. And instantly, because I said something slightly negative, I was added to this Twitter meme that was happening. It was a hashtag called VodaFail. In fact, 74,000 customers were added to this VodaFail robot that was running around Twitter, picking up everybody that was saying negative things and adding them to a website called VodaFail. And because of Twitter, we had evidence in real time where the network wasn't working, at what time, because Twitter geo-tags whenever you tweet on your mobile device. And it would tweet for me in Epping, New South Wales, that when I tweeted my 3G dongle wasn't working, I had evidence of where I was and where it wasn't working. But at this time, this client didn't have that database. They didn't have a geolocated, time-stamped feedback of the market, but the client self-organized to do it themselves. Anyway, this is a while ago now, but what is the punchline? Well, the punchline was that this company had contracts with their customers. They had a guarantee of service, and the regulators in Australia asked for all the tweets to be delivered to the court so they could use that as evidence that the company didn't meet their obligations. I was thinking, Linda, how much does it cost for a company to monitor Twitter? It's really expensive, isn't it? How much does that cost again?
Zip.
Oh,
Absolutely
yeah.
nothing.
It doesn't cost them anything, but how
Nope.
many organizations do you work with and they just don't listen to Twitter?
Amazing.
It's crazy. It's
Hmm.
insane because it's their customers talking to them. And it's just one example, isn't it? It could be any social network. If you're just not listening, you don't know what people are saying about you. And I just think that's insane. It's crazy. And so many of the big organizations, they say to me, "Oh, but Craig, we have a call center. People can call us." I think, well, they're probably like me. They're going to hang up and not listen. Anyway, let me make the case for foresight. If I was to ask you, do you think the world is moving pretty quick right now? Would you say yes? I think you might. But I'm here to tell you that you really have no idea. The world is moving much faster than you think. But if you're so busy delivering in your business every day, trying to get your to-do list done, it's hard to lift your eyes up and look over the horizon and say, what's happening and what should I do about it? And they see that's my role to help you do that. So I want to connect you to the future and show you some fantastic things that are happening. Maybe some of these things could apply to you. Meet my friend Craig Venter. He did an amazing thing about 13 years ago now, 14 years ago. He mapped the human genome. And it last, well, let's see, it would have been May 2010, after the 10th anniversary of the mapping of the human genome. Craig announced on a website called TED that he'd done something remarkable. And I say he invented the future. Again, mapping of the human genome has changed medicine forever. In fact, it's actually linked the IT industry and medicine together forever. What he did was he harnessed the power of computers. He said that he knew futurists in the IT area, and he just stole that idea from the IT industry and applied it to medicine. This is one of the techniques that futurists use all the time. Maybe you see a trend that's happening in another industry, and you can import it to your industry. He said he did this to map the human genome. And then he did this remarkable thing. He created this. This little critter is Phi Alpha 182. It is the world's first artificial life form. Its father is a computer. Its mother is 4 beakers of chemicals. And it is a brand new life form of new bacteria with customized DNA. In fact, has its website address encoded in its DNA, so he can copyright it as well. This is the world's first artificial life form. And you know, Craig said at a speech that in the 1970s, schools started getting dot matrix printers. In the 1980s, schools started getting laser printers. In the 1990s and the 2000s, they started to get 3D printers. And he says within 15 years, schools will have life form printers. He's been right before. I wonder if he'll be right again. But to show you how fast this accelerates, because the area of medicine is mostly open source, when he makes a fantastic claim like he's created the world's first artificial life form, that gets published and it goes through peer review. Therefore, it's open source. People can build upon that. And this is why medicine, in many ways, is accelerating faster than technology did in the last 40 years. So in just 8 months after his announcement, Chinese researchers said, you know, in the future, we're going to have to create biological computers. And we're going to need a way to store data. So they said, what is one of the most common bacteria? Oh, yeah, that common household bacteria called E. coli. So they developed a way, just 8 months after Craig Venter's announcement, took his research and building upon that, they created a way to use E. coli to store data. In fact, just a little gram, tiny little gram of this bacteria could store 90 gigabytes worth of data. Now they're just working on the Wi-Fi bacteria, so you can connect it to the network. Well, what I say to people is, all you have to do is not clean your kitchen for a few weeks, and you could back up all your family photos. Anyway, that's backup for the future. Here's another example of how you can take something from another industry and apply it to yours. This, again, is in the field of medicine, but This is Anthony Italia, and he took those 3D printers that schools have been getting all around the world. Schools in New Zealand and Australia are all getting these 3D printers now. They've come down to under $1,000 in price. But instead of printing with little plastic beads, here he's actually printing with stem cells. And do you know whose stem cells he's going to use? Your stem cells. Because now they can take stem cells from adults and they can print out on these printers a 3D, well, the first thing they created was a bladder. And there are people living today that have had their bladders replaced. They've lost it for disease or an accident. They've had it replaced using this technique. He's now working on kidneys and lungs. And he said in the next 5 to 10 years, these will be going in the first patients. And here he is live on stage at a conference called TED, where he printed out this prototype kidney that he's working on at the Wake Forest School of the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine. Started with bladders, and now they're moving on to these 22 different organs that the world needs. Let me make the case for innovation, or what I like to say, what Steve Jobs, my first boss, taught me about embracing risk. Apple's been a company that's unique. Everybody talks about innovation, they talk about Apple, but I have to because, well, that's where I work. That's all I know. It's how I learned to innovate. And Apple did something that most companies would never do. They're willing to come out with a new technology that makes their old technology completely irrelevant. Or does it? Apple's stock is still going strong. I don't know. Did you buy some shares when they were, oh, I remember when they were 8 and now they're $600. Did your stock broker advise you to buy Apple? You know, I
Nope.
asked this at hundreds of speeches. Not yet. And look at Apple as a company. The green line there on the chart on the left is the number of Macs that they sold in 28 years history of the Mac. And the lines over on the left are the uptake, and you see it's much more of the iDevices, the iPad, the iPhone, and the iPod Touch that all use the same, well, a trimmed down version of the Macintosh operating system. And if you add the iPad and the iPhone and the iPod Touch on top of one another, you can see just last year, Apple sold more iDevices in 2011 than they sold Macs in 28 years. And their profit margin just keeps on going up. You can see that on the right-hand side. And analysts are estimating that Apple's operating margin could reach 50% next year. So Tim Cook's the new guy in charge, since my mentor, my buddy, the chief, the person that we love so much that when he left Apple, 1,500 of us left with him, and we weren't asked to leave. He inspired such change in us, in the world, but it required him to come back and do his life's work. He called it his life's work, this thing called the iPad. And here's Tim Cook, the CEO now in charge, and he was presenting at a conference just a few months ago. He was saying, are we living in a post-PC world where these mobile devices are more important than the desktop devices of the 1990s? Well, he knows that we are, and Apple made that bet starting in 2007. You know, we've only had 5 years of history of the iPhone, but how it's changed the world. People queue up to get the iPhone. They go to these stores and they just love to hang out. They want some human touch in a high-tech world, they say. They go to the Genius Bar and get their iPhones configured. This has resulted in Apple being the #1 retail store in the world per square foot. They're twice as much than Prada. So I want to ask you a question to think about as we move forward. You don't have to answer me now, but I want you to ask yourself, well, I'm going to ask you these questions. Do you think foresight is innovation? Or is this just a bunch of hooey? It doesn't really apply to you. It doesn't affect you in your job. I want to ask you, what happens to organizations that don't truly innovate? And can you think of any books, talks, or videos you've enjoyed about the above subjects, about innovation and foresight? Would you be willing to share it with some friends? Maybe type it into the chat box? And what do you think? What's your opinion on the developments of synthetic life forms? Do you think it's an opportunity, or do you think it's a threat? So if you want to know more about this, I've been mentioning several times one of my favorite websites, TED. You probably heard about it. 500 million people have downloaded the videos. But did you know that TED was started by futurists? Did you know that it's where the Macintosh was launched? And the world's first CD player? The world's first laser printer? This is a conference of innovators. And if you want to know more about foresight and innovation, type in foresight and innovation at TED and have a look at some videos. But I've got a little gift for you coming up. I want to point you to a resource that I used so I can keep up in my business. I listen to audiobooks. I listen to them on double speed because my Googler friends told me that this is what they do. They listen to audiobooks at double speed and they retain twice as much. Would you like to give this a try? You can try this yourself. Go to audible.com/twit2. This is audible.com/twit2. It's not an affiliate. I don't get a kickback or anything like this. This is just a free trial. I have no financial interest in it. And you can download 2 audiobooks. And I thought I'd suggest one for you. A great one by a professor of journalism, Jeff Jarvis. A great book called What Would Google Do? What Would Google Do? Maybe a good read for you, Linda, on the plane ride over to Fiji. What do you think?
I think I'll be thinking about
And for your
sunbathing, but
attendees,
yes.
also, I'd like to give them, well,
I,
combining business and leisure,
you should always spend
And I
time
want to
to
give to
learn.
all my, that's right. I wanted to make sure that all of your attendees get a free copy of my book, How to Think Like a Futurist, so we can continue the conversation. So if they go to isgood, which is is.gd/think, they can get a free copy of my book. But I want to drill down into one particular technology to finish off my presentation, one that I think is critical to your organization. If you don't invest in this area, you could be, well, like those companies that didn't buy fax machines or laser printers or life form printers. Will they get left behind? Will they get left behind in this mobile madness, as I call it? Think about the mobile device that you have somewhere near you. Is it in your pocket? Is it in your purse? Is it sitting next to you? For many people, that mobile device is the last thing they look at night and the first thing that they look at in the morning. And you have in your pocket or your purse more computing power than NASA had when they put a man on the moon. Yet when I ask people what they're doing with that mobile, they tell me, oh, I'm doing email. You could do so much more. You could put a man on the moon. Well, actually, if you have the latest iPhone, you've got 1,000 times more computing power than NASA had to put a man on the moon. So you certainly could be doing more than email with it. Maybe Angry Birds. Anyway, here's a chart that financial analysts use to analyze the uptake of technology. And it shows historically the yellow line and the light blue line and the red line, the take-up of desktop internet and some of the first mobile internet. But I know what color line you're looking at. You're looking at that green one. That's mobile internet. And this is going back to 2007 when iPhone and the iPod Touch launched. This was the uptake. Just you can see the mobile internet is vastly, the take-up is vastly higher. There's an order of magnitude literally higher than desktop internet ever was. But actually that chart's out of date. That's 3 quarters ago. Have a look what happened 2 quarters ago. 380 million in 1 quarter. Now look at those lines down the bottom. But that was 2 quarters ago. What happened last quarter? 168 million, 500,000,000 mobile internet devices in a single quarter. This is an incredible shift in technology. Some people are giving up their laptops. They're giving up their desktop machines, and their only device is connecting through mobile internet, smartphones and tablets. You know, Facebook was talking about this. They're saying that almost 200 million of their users, their primary way to access Facebook is through a mobile device. Mobile is growing faster than any technology before. And going back in history, the mainframes sold in the millions. The microcomputers like the DECs and the Wangs, they sold in the tens of millions. The PCs sold in the hundreds of millions. We eventually got to a billion plus, now 2 billion people on the internet. But in this post-PC world, we're getting into the tens of billions. And I know what you're saying. You're saying there's only 7 billion people on the planet, but it's not just mobile devices connected to humans. It's the Internet of Things that is changing the world. Mobile sensors and new, well, robotic technology connecting us to those centers. Anyway, I have a special offer, Linda, for your attendees just before we go to questions. If you don't have your own mobile app, I'd like to help you create your own mobile app. And I've got a couple sessions coming up in the next couple weeks. I call it Build Your Own Mobile Tablet App in just 90 minutes. And I can do this remotely. I can use this GoToWebinar technology and actually help you build your own app in 90 minutes. It's an interactive webinar workshop, I call it. You'll produce your own app. You can change it yourself or update it any time after that. And I'm going to be running sessions on the 24th and 26th and have multiple time slots. And a very special offer for your clients, Linda. You know, when I work in the corporate sector, I charge a little bit more than $100. I think you know that, don't you?
Absolutely. Just a tad.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make, you know, it a price that everybody could afford to have their own mobile app, or see how they can make it for other people if they want to do that as well. So we've got multiple time slots, and we've got a link that is bit.ly/Craig Webinar. That's bit.ly/Craig Webinar. You can register your interest there, and we'll be in communication with you afterwards and get you into a slot so you can build your own mobile app, because you're not thinking about a desktop internet strategy, are you? Because those days are over with. Those were the 1990s. We're in a whole new world where mobile internet is the most important technology ever created by mankind. Anyway, better leave it there, Linda. We got time for a few questions?
Okay, yeah, and I've actually sent both of those links out in the chat box. The first one for Craig's book, and then the second
Great.
one for the app offer webinar. So they're both in your chat box there, both
Thank
the
you.
URLs. So everybody should have those. Couple of questions. First one from Caroline. Caroline, what are the references for those graphs? Can you go back to those graphs?
I can. They're actually from a fantastic analyst that used to be at Morgan Stanley. But Mary Meeker, who does these charts, has now moved on to another venture capital firm called Kleiner Perkins, and she's done an update of these charts as well. So if you look for Mary Meeker, it's Marymmeeker, I believe. You'll find, and look for Mary Meeker's latest internet trends, mobile internet trends. You'll be able to get her latest slide pack. I'll warn you though, it's about 200 slides. So I've taken the ones that were most pertinent to us here today. But boy, if you need more evidence about how the mobile internet has taken off, this is a great source.
Okay, and one from Angela. What do you see in the future for Lean and Six Sigma, especially with the continuous improvement area services?
Well, they're so closely tied to innovation. you know, lean I'm seeing applied to all sorts of areas, not just manufacturing. I was at a conference and they had an entire day dedicated to lean selling. I went to another conference, they had an entire day applied to lean consulting. Now, lean for me, I go back a couple decades. Lean was about a manufacturing process, but now Six Sigma, constant improvement, uh, uh, with the lean is impacting all sorts of areas. In fact, here's a interesting connection to that. There's a whole new area of study in business schools. Every business school in the world now has introduced designers, design thinkers into business equations. They're bringing in new thinking, mixing them up with lean and Six Sigma and innovation processes, bringing design thinking to business problems. And in fact, there's a design thinking group here in Sydney, and they only do they do a crossover of lean and design thinking just for service organizations. They don't help any companies that have products. They just do service. And I know they must be doing well because they have about 35 employees. That's pretty amazing, Linda. Can you imagine having a design thinking, lean consulting consultancy in Sydney with 35 employees? There must be a demand for it.
Must be. Okay, we've got a question from Lindsay. Do you have a copy of the graph on Mac sales versus iSales? Would you have anything, maybe even if you
I
haven't,
do.
that maybe you can,
Yes, I
Lindsay can
can.
maybe email you or?
I'll show you where you can go. This is also referenced on my slides, and a copy of my slides will be up on slideshare.net. But let me find the link. I want to get it right because I'm dyslexic, and if I don't see it in front of me, I'll quote it wrong. This is Asymco, Asymco. If you Google that, he's an incredible industry analyst that especially looks at you know, Samsung and Apple and Google and Amazon, and he puts out these charts and graphs on a regular basis. And if you go to YouTube and type in ASYMCO, you'll find some keynote presentations that are worth watching as well. There's tons of these. I've just selected a couple of the most relevant for today.
Okay, thanks. From Bryden, will the webinar for making your own app be available in recorded format after so that you can go back and go back through it again? Will you
Oh,
be able to?
sure.
Yeah.
It will be recorded, but also then on top of that, it's not just a one-time event. Linda, you probably know, and this is available to all your attendees today. You know, I have electronic office hours that I run on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So any of my customers can drop in anytime. So not only will you have it recorded, but if you want to make changes or you get stuck or you want to take it up to the next level, on alternate Fridays, I have free, anyone can do attend, electronic office hours, bring any questions, and so you'll have ongoing support for, well, forever, because I have had you know, office hours, and including electronic office hours now running for 17 years. 17 years I've been doing it, Linda. I can't believe it.
Well, you're not
So not just
retiring yet.
recording, personal help as well. No, I'm not. No, I'm on the Charlie Tremendous Jones retirement plan. One of our colleagues from the National Speakers Association, who gave his last speech a week before he passed away in his sleep at
Wow.
the age of 98. That's my retirement plan.
Okay. Angelo, where do we find a copy of the slides? Now, you mentioned SlideShare. Should they just go to SlideShare and search Craig Rispin, or would you have an actual
Yes, that's all you
address?
have to do. You go to slideshare.net, and search on Craig Rispin, and you'll find all my slide packs, including the one with video that I did for the Medical Technology Association as well. If you want if you're interested in that, there's a longer version of that. And these slides will be up, if you give me about 30 minutes or an hour to compress them and upload them and make sure they're all right, they'll be up there. So just give me a bit of time. I always upload all my slide packs there. and I'm happy to share, and you can use them. I'll make them downloadable as well, so you can take them on your mobile device. To say you're up in a plane and you don't have internet access, you can take it with you.
Okay. From David, what was the name of the design consultancy in Sydney?
Oh, I knew I was going to get asked that. Okay. You know, I'm gonna have to leave that for my electronic office hours. It'll come to me. What are they called? Oh dear. I'm gonna have to go to Evernote, my digital brain, and find it. Uh, I'll have to leave it for my electronic office hours. If you could send David to my website, futuretrendsgroup.com, and
Okay.
yeah, if I have on my website, I'll have the answer for him there. I have on my website, futuretrendsgroup.com. And on the left-hand side is my virtual mentoring, my mentoring over here, mentoring meetings. And here's all of my mentoring meetings, including the virtual e-office hours. Meet me there. Happens alternate Fridays. I'll be happy to help you then.
Okay.
I know it's in Evernote.
You'll find
I
it
put
when we
everything
go
there.
online.
That's right.
And the last question from Jane, it was regarding the audible.com. I think the address that she was looking for is audible.com/twit and then the number 2.
That is correct. Twit2. So that's audible.com/twit, TWIT, for This Week in Technology, Leo Laporte's podcasting company, 2 for the 2-book offer. And that will take you to your special office. It's telling, it didn't take me to the right page because I'm already a member. People who aren't members will get the right page. So, but it is Twit2, audible.com/Twit2.
Okay, now Jane's just saying that's what happened to her too.
Oh, already a member. Already a member?
I think maybe you are, maybe Jane, because you said you were a fan of it. Yes, she is and already a member. So I wonder if there's somewhere else then. Don't worry, Jane, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Okay, well maybe that's another one for your electronic office hours.
Anything else we should cover, or should we
No,
leave
I
the rest
think
for?
that's it really, Craig.
Okay.
Hang on, what's this last one? Okay, that's just for me. How long will the recordings be available to listen for each seminar? Well, for those people that have actually been on the whole length of the seminar, they'll be there till September and you know the password. For the people that have been just onto Craig's complimentary session here at the end, it's in the same place. You won't need a password to actually get to the recording to this. And that's if you go to www.bluebanana20.com/recordings. All the recordings will be up there till about September. So you've got a little bit of time to go back and watch them. And Craig's one won't be password protected so that anyone can go in and delve back into that information. So that brings me very much to the end. So thank you so much, Craig. That was brilliant. Foresight and innovation. It's obviously 2 things to really focus on for the next
Well, you're
coming
very welcome.
years. So don't forget, catch up with those recordings, bluebanana20.com/recordings. Craig's presentation will probably be up there tomorrow. Yep, bluebanana20.com/recordings. So I'd like to just thank again the sponsors, MYOB, for sponsoring this series and for everybody actually turning up to learn. We've had some great presentations over the last weeks. You should also be getting an automated email directly from Citrix just to get some feedback on what you thought of the whole series and in fact today's presentation. So please give generously, thoughts good and bad, so that we can improve for any other events that we do in the future. So a final word from you, Craig, anything that you want to just add?
Yes, go out and create your preferable future because somebody else shouldn't do that for you.
Oh, I like it. Well, that's it from me. Until the next event. This is Linda from Blue Banana with MYOB as a main sponsor saying over and